Tonight, tears of joy across Israel as all living hostages return home. The latest on efforts to sustain peace.
Never forget and never again.
With the U.S. pledging commitment to the work ahead. And world leaders gathering to discuss a future for all sides. Plus, a war of words reigniting between the U.S. and China. A look at the latest tariff turmoil and potential economic fallout. And a shutdown standoff. The battle between Democrats and Republicans rolls into another week, with museums closing and massive layoffs sweeping across the federal government. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Tonight, a nation exhales. After 2 long years, all of Israel's living hostages are finally home. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. Well, one by one, in trucks and helicopters, the last of Israel's 20 living hostages are finally in their families' arms after 2 years in Hamas captivity. Singing, dancing, and tears erupting in the streets, marking the end of a nightmare for families who campaigned tirelessly for their freedom. Today, emotional reunions as relatives embrace for the first time in 2 years as part of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. No, and right now you are watching Eviatar David's reunion. We spoke with his brother back in February, who told us he would fight every day until his brother came back alive. But even in this joy, deep sorrow for many others, Hamas has begun releasing the bodies of 28 other hostages, all confirmed killed during captivity. In exchange, Israel is releasing nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, including individuals accused of carrying out attacks against Israelis. Earlier today, President Trump addressed Israel's parliament, marking the hostages' return and reflecting on what this deal means for the region.
For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over.
And after his speech, President Trump joined world leaders today in Egypt to officially sign the ceasefire deal and begin the process of rebuilding Gaza. Here with more on the backdrop of today's historic events is senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright. Kelly, an emotional day in the Middle East. I think, I was getting choked up watching some of those reunions. President Trump, he's being hailed for his peace plan, bringing the hostages home and implementing a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Kelly, how did we get here, and what was his message to members of the Knesset?
Yeah, Jenna, good evening to you. And to your point, this is an emotional day, a day of celebration and even a day of mourning. It was made possible through President Trump's efforts of peace and strength. He worked tirelessly with Arab leaders and Israel's Bibi Netanyahu, as well as the leadership there in Israel. He even had Bibi call the PM, the Prime Minister of Qatar, to personally apologize for Israel carrying out a missile attack on Qatar to take out Hamas leaders when they were supposed to meet there. They missed, but they killed a Qatari soldier. And once that apology was made, it was as if they smoothed their relations between the two countries, between Qatar and Israel. Mr. Trump also ordered U.S. forces, you'll recall, to obliterate the nuclear sites of Iran in Operation Midnight Hammer. All of this plus more helped achieve the peace that they've achieved today. And President Trump acknowledging that 20 hostages returned home today, while 4 of the 28 dead hostages were returned, again showing the celebration and the sorrow and the sadness and the love and the joy. During his speech before the Knesset, the president said, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Amen. The president, he also gathered with nearly 24 world leaders today in Egypt, Kelly, to talk about the efforts to sustain peace. What are some of the tangible commitments that came out of that summit?
So look, the president signed the Gaza peace agreement there at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Nations at the table included for the documents were Turkey, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. Also joining them were the leaders representing their nations, some 31 nations gathering there, and for the historic moment. And the president said the momentous breakthrough that took place today is that they are there to celebrate more than the end of the war in Gaza, but also, with God's help, it will be a new beginning for the entire Middle East. From this moment, he said, going forward, they can build a region that is strong, stable, and prosperous.
Yeah, we just saw an image there of Peace 2025. Let's hope that that's prophetic. Kelly, Israel is also returning nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners today, including some known terrorists. What's the White House saying about the future of Gaza and Palestinians, and what's the next phase, Kelly, in this peace deal?
So look, getting to this point has been very hard. Now the difficult work begins in phase 2, and that is to have Hamas disarmed. They must disarm. Israel will maintain its security perimeter around the region. Arab security forces from various Arab nations, including Qatar, will also help secure Gaza to ensure that Hamas disarms. A peace board will be established to help build a new Gaza Strip. The president will be the chairman of that board, and that will pave the way for Palestinians to return to their homes, albeit those homes are destroyed for the 2 million people. The president saying earlier today that he sees the 2 million people returning to their homes and realizing that it's not there, that it's been destroyed. He said, look, when you look at the people returning, they look like you and I. And like you and I, they want to return to a place to build a place for peace and prosperity. And he wanted to say that hopefully they've achieved a Middle East peace that will be long-lasting.
Yeah. All right, Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright at the White House this evening. Kelly, thank you. And for more on what's developing in the region, we are joined by Simone Ledeen. She is the Executive Director of Maven Defense Solutions and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Simone, welcome. First, I want to start with something that you wrote today on Twitter, or on X, excuse me. Just 2 words. You wrote, "at last." That seems to really capture what a lot of people are feeling right now. Can you reflect on the moment, Simone, and what it means, not just for the families, but for the region and even for the world watching?
Absolutely. Well, I found myself, like many others, unable to sleep last night with so much excitement and worry, waiting for the announcement that the hostages were released, really longing to see these videos of reunion. And it's been amazing to see it actually happen. I was worried that it wouldn't happen, but it did. So yes, absolute. It's hard to describe what those emotions are, but I think a lot of your viewers probably share them. It's just joy and gratitude and thanks to God and thanks to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu and everyone involved on their teams and for making this possible. But the hostages, especially these ones that have been held the longest, we know a lot about the treatment that they underwent, the torture, and just the deprivation that they underwent for 2 full years.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a really long recovery, but just seeing them with their families, seeing them alive, was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And meaningful, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Is kind of holding my breath to see if this would happen, and it's so nice to see that it has come to pass. President Trump, he called this ceasefire deal a once-in-a-lifetime chance to move beyond old feuds. Simone, do you feel that this is a real turning point in the region?
I hope that it is. I think perhaps it's an opportunity. We still have, however, we still have Hamas, which has not laid down its arms, has not surrendered, and in fact is trying to reassert control in Gaza as we speak. They've been going after tribal, uh, you know, what they call tribal aggressors who are sort of trying to rise up against Hamas and become an alternative, which Gaza desperately needs. So Hamas has been busy kind of putting down any potential revolt against their leadership. So the problem remains until Hamas leaves the stage. We're still faced with this challenge, and Israel, unfortunately, is still faced with a threat right across its border. So that is something that needs to be resolved. I'm so grateful that that President Trump and the others involved were able to get Hamas to release all of the live hostages before this situation is addressed. But now it must be addressed. And really, I don't see a way forward for peace if Hamas is still there, this terrorist non-state actor controlling this piece of land.
Yeah.
It's just not tenable.
Yeah, and there are, of course, questions if, this process has embittered them and made them more resolved in their terror. Simone, what is it actually going to take to rebuild Gaza? It's a very complicated thing, of course, and who do you think shapes the future on the ground there?
Well, there has to be a legitimate governing structure in Gaza. It can't be Israel. Israel said they don't want to. They're not going to, long-term own the Gaza Strip. They don't want that, and it's not a good outcome for them, I think. But given world opinion and how world opinion has shifted against Israel in the last 2 years, just to be clear on that, I do think that as we look at the future of Gaza, a lot of people are pointing to the Palestinian Authority as a potential alternative. I feel very strongly that is not a potential alternative.
Okay.
The Palestinian Authority is incredibly corrupt, has not governed the West Bank in an effective way. In fact, terrorism is sprouting across the West Bank while the PA is in charge. So we need there's a new generation of leaders, I hope, that are not infected by this jihadist philosophy that requires them to be in perpetual war with Israel. It's just not going to work out well for the Palestinian people.
Simone, we unfortunately we're out of time, Simone, but I appreciate you coming on so much, and we'll hope this is certainly a new day in the Middle East. We'd love to have you on again. Thank you, Simone Ledeen. And coming up, gridlock in Washington. The government shutdown rolls into week 2, how it's affecting people across the country. Welcome back on Capitol Hill. The Senate has now tried and failed 7 times to pass a spending bill that would reopen the government, and lawmakers have left town again. CBN's Michelle London was on Capitol Hill today and joins us now with the latest. London?
Well, Jenna, it was a very quiet day on Capitol Hill earlier as House Speaker Johnson was there holding his daily presser to reporters, giving them an update on the status of the government shutdown. I'll get to that in a second. But first, some data on where many Americans currently stand on day 13 of this shutdown, especially after certain services have been suspended. Polling shows hardline opposition from Democrats on rising health care costs is not earning trust from voters on economic issues. But a recent YouGov Economist poll, which surveyed 1,600 Americans, also shows 41% of those Americans hold the GOP accountable for the lapse in federal funding, compared to 30% who point the finger at Democrats. 23% hold both parties equally responsible. And when asked which party they trust more on economic issues, those same voters gave the GOP a 4-point advantage. Meanwhile, military members are set to continue receiving paychecks during the shutdown as millions of government workers receive received their final check on Friday, at least until Congress turns the light back on at the Capitol. Essential layoffs also started Friday. A Health and Human Services spokesperson says the department sent layoff notices across multiple divisions, calling it a direct consequence of the Democrat-led government shutdown. Meanwhile, today, when asked by reporters why he's keeping the House out of session when he knows work still needs to be done, Johnson said House lawmakers continue to do work in their home states. Listen.
Doing some of their best work in the district, helping their constituents navigate this crisis that's been created by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. The Schumer shutdown causes real pain for real people, veterans, the elderly, people who rely upon these services, our rural hospitals that have been struggling. Our members are out helping them to access the rural hospital fund that we created and that the president signed into law on July 4th that no Democrats assisted on.
And Democrats insist on passing a bill that restores Republican cuts to Medicaid and extends Obamacare subsidies set to expire at year's end, something Johnson told reporters is nearly impossible to negotiate before a temporary funding measure is passed. Listen.
If indeed the subsidy is going to be continued, it needs real reform. But there's a lot of ideas on the table to do that. Probably 100 different ideas on how to fix it, but we can't do that overnight. That requires the month of October and probably part of November to get the consensus built around that.
And so far, Jenna, 3 Democrats have voted with Republicans on this temporary clean resolution, which is basically congressional speak for keeping consistent federal funding in place for another 7 weeks. Senate Republicans need the support of at least 5 more Democrats to pass this. The Senate will vote on this stopgap CR for an 8th time tomorrow. Jenna.
Okay, Michelle London, thank you very much. Well, up next, the tariff showdown between China and the U.S. and what it could mean for holiday shopping. Wall Street is showing signs of recovery after a rough week, helped by President Trump softening his tone on trade with China. Last week, the president threatened higher tariffs, which shook investors. Now he's dialing it back, though, saying the U.S. wants to help China, not hurt it. That shift is easing some fears, but big questions remain over the future of the economy. Here to help answer those questions, Ted Rossman, Senior Industry Analyst at Bankrate. Ted, nice to see you. Welcome. So President Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports kick in November 1st. Your thoughts on that, Ted, and Trump softening his tone some as we approach that deadline?
Yes, the tariffs that the president talked about last Friday were seemingly walked back over the weekend. Lots of twists and turns to come. I would definitely not view anything as written in ink so far. This is very much a written in pencil kind of situation. President Trump is scheduled to meet with President Xi Jinping of China on October 31st or November 1st. So that could be a key meeting when it comes to this November 1st deadline. We know that the president often uses tariffs as a negotiating point. We'll see. Nothing's written in stone just yet. Overall, stocks did better today. It's sort of this tariff on, tariff off kind of thing that we've been dealing with for a while. Lots of other uncertainty, too, related to the government shutdown. We didn't get the September jobs report. Probably going to miss the September inflation report later this week. It makes the Fed's job tougher when they meet later this month. They'll probably cut rates, but for a very data-dependent Fed, the data is pretty much stalled right now.
Yeah, it is kind of a wait-and-see situation, it seems like. Ted, some retail and trade experts, they're warning ahead of the holiday season, these Chinese imports, if they do in fact take effect, we could see prices go up pretty considerably. Should shoppers at home be prepared for that, or is it really, that wait-and-see situation?
Shoppers are definitely concerned. Our holiday shopping survey found that 4 in 10 holiday shoppers are worried about higher prices this year. To be fair, as much as we've talked about the bark of tariffs over the past several months, that's been worse than the bite so far. Prices really haven't changed all that much on the store shelves. Some of that is because retailers have been absorbing the hikes. It remains to be seen if they can do that over the long term. At least for the holiday shopping season, though, it feels like the tariff effect will probably be muted between retailers absorbing those higher prices, retailers stocking up early. There was a big wave of shipments before the tariffs took effect. It seems like the holiday shopping season will be okay. I expect something like a 3 or 3.5% gain over last year. So not a blockbuster gain for retailers, but more or less in line with inflation.
Yeah. Ted, while I have you here, I want to talk about a new survey from the Wall Street Journal. Their headline, it puts it this way: stronger growth, weaker hiring, forecasters see a split screen economy. Essentially, the economists that they surveyed think that prospects for U.S. growth do look good, but at the same time, employers are reluctant to hire right now because of the uncertainty, political uncertainty, rising costs, that kind of thing. Your thoughts on this dichotomy, Ted, highlighted in this survey?
I agree with that. It's all about the uncertainty. This is very much a low hire, low fire job market right now. We're not seeing much in the way of job creation. We're not seeing a lot of layoffs either. It's just kind of stuck in suspended animation. It's tough for recent grads or those who are out of work and looking to get into the job market. But many people with jobs are sticking with them. It's not like a few years ago when we saw that great resignation thing where a lot of people are switching jobs. No, right now people are staying put. Companies are just kind of hunkered down, waiting to see what comes next with the economy, tariffs, the broader job market, some of these other factors.
Okay. Ted Rossman, we have to leave it there. Ted Rossman with Bankrate, thank you so much. And still ahead, a college football player making history next on Faith Nation. And finally tonight, a standout college athlete is proving it's never too late to follow your dreams. At 58 years old, Tom Sillo went back to school at Lycoming College in Pennsylvania. But his plans go beyond the classroom. Sillo is trying to become the oldest college football player in more than a decade, playing defensive lineman with only a year of high school football on his resume. And he's already made history as the oldest player to sign a name, image, and likeness deal with a pain relief cream. Tom says he is putting the training and working hard to keep up with the other players, even if that means broken fingers and bruised ribs.
I just need a change. And what better way to make a change than to go play college football, right?
Yeah, and Tom recently made his debut on the field in a freshman game where he was greeted by cheers from the crowd. Good for him, and making some money to boot. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. See you tomorrow.